phone. It is 3:01. So I will call the Board of Assessors meeting of Thursday, June 13th to order at just after 3 o'clock. Other than Lakeville, is anyone else recording? Nope. Okay. So do we have any public comment? You may want to interject on an agenda item later, but no one else here for anything. In the meantime, we have the meeting minutes of May 30th to approve.
I see an initial. I don't know if, is that your initial?
You already read it.
It may be. It looks like it.
And move to approve the minutes as drafted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have the mileage
reimbursement.
Norman, that does, in the future, that doesn't need to be on the agenda. Unless there's a specific issue with it. It's just a sign-off sheet, right?
Yeah, there isn't. There's also a bill to pay. Just came in this afternoon.
Okay, we'll sign the bill and you can give me the...
We also have another piece of housekeeping.
Here goes, sir.
We're required by the
All right.
town clerk to annually have the board authorize a single signature on payroll. And so
Bills, invoices.
Yes,
Invoices.
I'll
Invoices
adjust that.
and-
We have, John remembers, but Aaron's benefit, we've done in the past, so we don't have to have meetings or wait for everyone to show up for payroll especially, but more so for invoices and whatnot. If there's a if there's a single signature, as long as one board member signs off on a bill, that we don't need to have a meeting and have all three of us take a vote and sign off on it. So we all need to agree to do that. So I'll entertain a motion, and then we can sign off, so the clerk will have what she needs. You guys can read with the...
Yeah, so moved.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sign it.
Need to sign?
yeah, if we.
And you're that appointee.
No, it says not any.
Well, it could be anybody. I'm the appointee for the payroll because I handle the payroll, but it could be anyone to do that, as long as one of us stops by.
Right. No, I understand.
Yeah, we just don't want the...
Yeah, you don't want to hold up the wheels of government. They turn slowly enough.
Exactly. Good way to put it. There you go. Give that to Lil. She'll be happy.
Yes.
Did you want me
Okay.
to put it in the folder?
Yes,
or not?
please. Thank you.
Do we have any other housekeeping items or anything else from RRG that we need to go over at this point?
I do have an administrative abatement that we would handle in executive session.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that until
I do
later.
have an update on GIS, but we can talk about that after meeting with Mr. Knox.
Agenda item number 5, discuss valuation of police department. So,
I took the liberty of printing property record cards for the property that takes in the old police station.
I'll kind of try to encapsulate this agenda item relatively quickly, then I'll turn it over to you, Harold. The police station is currently under agreement, and it's a municipal building. There are certain buildings that aren't necessarily always accurately. I don't want to say.
I wouldn't
accurately
characterize
assessed,
it, and I'll explain.
Yeah, the question comes up about are they correctly assessed? I'm not saying they are or they aren't, but the question comes up. So where it's under agreement now, it's more important to make sure it's assessed, because there actually are going to be taxes paid on it, as opposed to when it's municipally owned by the town, there is no tax collected. So it's much more important to make sure that it is correct. To that point, I'll turn it over to Harold, and he can discuss where the valuation where it is, and if it does need to be revisited.
Sure. So first let me say that we do not yet have a deed recorded deed for the property, or at least one hasn't made its way to the office. So the property is presently listed under the town of Lakeville.
Correct.
And as such, no preliminary tax bill will be issued on that property come July 1st. So that gives us a bit of time to formulate an assessment for this upcoming fiscal year. Usually around the end of September, we formulated the new valuations, and so sometime between now and the end of September, we'd hope to come to terms with that property and how it will be assessed for the upcoming fiscal year. So there's no urgency to the discussion, but we certainly want to hear from you.
Well, Mark Knox for the record. I think that there needs to be some closure on it for the passing of papers, because I think that's when I'm required to pay that tax, which would, right now I'm told July 31st.
Okay.
And again, I'm not trying to rush the board, but and if that date needed to be pushed back, as long as the town was amenable to that, I'm fine with that as well. My thoughts are, and I don't know if you guys saw the drafted purchase and sale agreement, but one of the stipulations is to tear down the building, to me, saying that it has little or no value at all because of the structural issues, and there are some other deficiencies that I put in that letter. You know, I would like to have a consideration of it being valued as a buildable lot, not as the structure at a 3,500 square foot usable, occupiable building, because not only that, I'm bound to post a performance bond to guarantee that I take that down, that has a significant financial value, as well as when all this does take place, first thing I'm going to do is go to the building department and give them a check for $7,000 or $8,000 for a building permit. So I don't think there would be any lost value to the town as far as from the tax base or a revenue standpoint, as well as I'm going to put up something nice that's going to be valued at well more than what's there now.
We're all for that.
Yeah. So that's my piece.
So your issue, as I'm understanding it, relates to the closing and what kind of holdbacks the closing attorney might put on the settlement sheet in anticipation of a tax bill.
I'm told I have to pay it all at closing, and I'm under the impression it's going to be like a $9,000 bill at closing for something that's going to have to be torn down.
Right.
I understand that I can abate that, but does that come back in the form of a check? Because again, I need to then write a check for the building department for almost that whole value. So there's things to consider, but
Sure. So let me
I
talk.
wouldn't think you'd be responsible for the entire year's worth of taxes at the closing. Typically, you would pay a quarter of what's due. You know,
yeah.
because that's the only tax amount that is liable to be paid is what is due and payable. So if you close on the 31st, payments are due August 1, assuming that it's assessed at what the value is, whatever the value is.
It was like 712.
712,800.
Right, so you need an MLC. They base the MLC on this value. It would have an annual amount of which only that quarter would be due August 1 for purposes of being in compliance with what taxes are owed. Now, the abatement piece is different, but in terms of the closing cost.
I think that it would be held in escrow.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're financing it and you have...
No, by the town. Like, I would still have to pay the full amount to be held by
because think about it,
administrator.
If you own... that shouldn't be the case. I mean, if you buy any property, when the taxes are set for the upcoming year, you don't owe them all. So if you own a piece of property outright and you don't have a loan on it, your taxes are due when they're due. And you're not obligated to pay them in advance of when they're due.
So the only thought I had, Aaron, was that there is a provision in the law that in a situation where somebody acquires an exempt property or a town-owned property, that the attorneys, town council presumably would be handling this,
Yep.
can pre-collect for the year the
Oh,
taxes.
is that what this falls under? So that's what you're describing as
Yeah.
a process.
I'm
by the
guessing
state
that that's
grab
what you
the-
described is normally the way this
Sure.
rolls out.
Yeah, and that sounds exactly like what's been explained to me.
Right.
Okay, so that's probably what they want to do is grab it all, but that doesn't mean that they would apply it all. They would only apply what is due when it's due.
Right.
But they may want to hold it in escrow for the year, sounds like what you're saying, and then they'll pull it out
Well,
of
I don't
escrow
know
and apply
about
it.
for a full year. I mean, and again, some of this probably needs to be then.
Right.
Right.
Let me-
So
let
I'm
me-
thinking
let me-
procedurally, yeah.
Let me take a step back here. I think we're getting a little further along. It's tax collection and things of that nature. This board's duty
Valuation only.
is valuation. So I think the question before us is this valued accurately now? And if it is not valued accurately, is there anything we need or should do in order to adjust that value, or that we can do in the meantime? Because what you're talking about as far as, and correct me, anybody, if you think I'm wrong here, but as far as whether the town's going to escrow it, how much they're going to collect, and all of that aspect, that's kind of out of the realm of what
Absolutely.
we're here for. We're here to say, listen, you got 712.8. Is 712.8 the right number? If it is the right number, then it is what it is. If it isn't the right number, my question to Harald, I guess, is what do we do to make it the right number?
Okay, so there are a couple of topics that I'd like to speak to. First, the valuation on the property.
Right.
Valuing municipal properties is incredibly challenging. And what I find in the course of this business is that I will get somebody from upstairs to say, hey, we've got to insure this school building, for example. And we note that the assessment is way too low. We'd never be able to replace that school for the assessed value. So on that end, and in that regard, there's this desire to pump up the value.
They're looking for replacement cost value as
Right.
opposed to an assessed value.
On the other extreme, when municipal buildings actually sell, they usually sell for often $1. If you think of a school building again, what do you do with a school building once the town abandons the education that takes place in that building?
Well, the unique uses, they're only good for...
Typically, they get torn down. And I think that's probably what we're seeing with the police station. I can cite sales of churches, for example. One in Uxbridge I came across recently. Center of the village, iconic church, congregation disbanded. It ended up on the tax rolls. The town took the property and then turned around and sold it for $50,000. To build that church would probably cost upwards of $2 million today. So the value on these types of properties is really challenging. What's promising is that we have a potential future use for the property, and I'd like to suggest that we work with the owner, or soon-to-be owner, to come up with a sensible, call it even discounted value that reflects.
Well, I'd call it a true value at this point.
Well, could I speak to what I was brought to the attention of a recent comp on Route 18, the train station, that I'm told is a bigger lot, similar building that would be in great state of disrepair, sold for $59,000 or $69,000. So it's similar commercial value. I'm not asking for that. I think more of where I would, in my letter, say that I think the property's worth between $100,000 and $200,000.
Essentially the land value.
Yeah, as a consideration, and I'm not, just my suggestion.
So, under Mass law, we value, and because of local options that we've adopted here, the status of the property on June 30th, the day before the fiscal year begins, determines what we tax. Now, I realize the building might still be on its foundation on June 30th, but perhaps early in July will be removed.
Well, I still need to go through zoning board of appeals. It'll be up for a while. I have 1 year to tear it down.
Okay.
So let's focus a little bit on the procedure of this. So just to sum, I think what Mark's request is to avoid tying up that money for longer than necessary and the possibility of taxes being applied and then having to be abated. So is there something we can do procedurally to address this?
I would suggest that we value the property at its land value, 182.4. We realize within
I would say 6 months the building will be gone.
so land value.
Your purchase and sale, is part of that the language that you are going to tear down the building?
I have to.
You have to. Okay, so
I
the reason I
have to
asked.
buy the town a performance bond for the value,
Yeah.
my demolition cost at prevailing wage, so that if I don't, the town can tear it down on my dime.
All right, so then we're in a position to say, listen, it's not even a matter of, not that I don't trust what Mark's telling us, but it doesn't
has to
matter whether
come
I
down.
trust Mark or not. There's a
You can
bond in
ask-
place that the town's gonna come in and tear it down anyway, so for us to value it at the land value, even if it's not torn down in July or August, it is going to
Not
ultimately be
only
torn
that-
down, it's gonna be vacant in the meantime.
And it's
Makes
condemned.
sense.
Yeah,
It can't be used for anything.
So that would be my recommendation, that we value it at the land value.
okay, so we could charge you with coming up with the accurate land value.
It's already there.
All right, based on, okay, so we'll just use the land value that's on there right now.
So procedurally, how do we do that?
Make a motion to,
We can do that right now?
Yes.
Okay.
anybody want to make a motion, and then if we have discussion, we can do it before we vote?
I move that we revise the value of, what is this, 296 Bedford Street to that of the land value
For fiscal 2020.
for 2020, correct?
Which is July 1st. Right, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion, questions, clarification necessary? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So I will notify Rita of the decision,
Yes.
and then she can communicate that to
Town
town council.
Powers that
Yeah.
be.
We're good?
That's it, unless you want to hear us talk about our GIS bid, Mark.
I'm gonna pass. Thank you for your time.
Okay, take care.
Take
Take care.
also.
Okay,
Nice to meet you.
likewise.
When you're done making your note to call Rita, you want to tell us about our GIS bid? Are we finally somewhere
Yeah, so I
with this?
checked with Tracy. There was only one bid, Cartographic Associates, and the selectmen have in their folder for signing at the next selectmen's meeting, I believe on the
Monday's meeting.
17th, that contract.
Okay. Are you up to date on that, Aaron? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. I lost track as to when you got on and where we were in this process, so.
I'm new, John, but I am up to speed on everything.
You're not gonna eat it? No. I'm glad to hear that. Any old business to come before the board today?
None.
New business?
None.
I believe we have something we need to take care of in executive
Yes,
session, the
it's an
abatement, correct?
administrative abatement.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss an administrative abatement, not to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.